Previously, before the move to Kentucky, I filmed a tutorial where I make an illusion necklace using some beautiful blue glass pearls, which just happened to fall in line with Dahlia Designs Jewelry Making Fun Collab for June 2022. So I wanted to share that with you for this. I realize I'm late. I'm so sorry, Dad. Please forgive me. But the colors were to be red, white, or blue. You could do pearls or mother of pearl and just use a dotting technique. So here's a project that I am sharing with you from 2017. Please forgive the lighting and everything for back then because clearly I had a long way to go to improve. So Deb's Collab is on the 18th of every month, usually posting at noon U.S. Eastern Standard Time. There are 3 criteria. You have your colors and 2 possible design challenge options. You participate on YouTube, and make sure that you check out all the other participants along with Dahlia Designs Jewelry and More. That's her channel there, her main channel for this collab on YouTube. And she also has a second channel for Deb Houck's Crafty Cottage, so make sure that you check out both channels there, and I hope you enjoy this project. Hey guys, it's Monica. Hello! I am coming at you with another jewelry making tutorial. I have a teal, white, and clear illusion necklace, which I made with little glass pearls. These are an 8mm size glass pearl. You can even go down to a 6mm glass pearl if you prefer something a little bit more petite. 8mm is not huge. It's actually the standard size for a bead. You might want to go with the 6mm, which is the size of this little Czech glass bead. You can see it laying side by side with the teal. This is the 8mm teal glass pearl, and then this is the little 6mm Czech glass bead. To make the design that I have chosen today, mine is partial threaded and then added onto some chain so that you have something that kind of hangs down without being totally around your neck in the illusion feel of it. If you want to go with the illusion thread all the way through, then be my guest. You won't have a chain component, not unless you do like maybe a small 2-inch chain extension on the back for those that may want to have a little bit longer length. You're going to need some monofilament cord. That would be something like I've got over here. This is by Beadalon. It's called Supplemax. And then also I just have regular monofilament fishing line. This is an 8-pound, and I don't know if you can see, but it's got the 0.011 average diameter for this 8-pound fishing cord. So when you think in terms of what you can get at the bead store, this has 110 yards on it, so there's a lot of it, versus 164 feet on your Beadalon Supplemax spools. So you can kind of choose whatever supplies that you may have at home, unless you want to purchase something at the craft store or the bead store. Even online, if you go to Amazon, you can get this as well. But I have a 0.012 diameter in the Supplemax, and I also have a 0.010, and I'm going to use this 0.010 Supplemax today. I have used my Trilene 8-pound fishing cord. I do find that the Supplemax does not kink as easily as monofilament fishing cord does. However, I mean, it's not really a big issue that I've had with kinking. I just noticed that it's a little bit more smooth. So as a matter of fact, this teal necklace is using the Trilene fishing cord, and you can see, I mean, I don't have any issues with it being kinked. I also am going to have a tape measure, which I've got mine pulled out to 30 inches. Depending on the length overall that you want, for instance, this that's on my board is a 27-inch. That includes the chain here. Today I'm going to be making a 16-inch necklace, so that's going to be a lot shorter, and I won't need as much of my Supplemax in order to make this version today. But whatever version you're going to make, in order to do this 27-inch necklace, the beaded portion here that's on this cord, I did 30-inch pieces of my monofilament cording. and had several inches left over that I trimmed off, obviously, when I got done. The knotting process is going to take up a lot of these inches, so it's not like you're going to have 30 inches worth of beadwork here, okay? So the size of your beads also, if you use a 6mm glass pearl instead of the 8 focal pearl that I've got here, the 8mm, then of course your knotting is going to be smaller because it's on a smaller bead, so that means you're going to have even more cord left over if you use 30 inches here. You can see it's at the 13.5 on each side of my board, which is including the clasp, so that's 27 inches total, and about 16, if you see I'm at the 8 on each side, about 16 inches of it is the beadwork here. So today I'm going to do a 16 inch, which I will probably go with still cutting off 20 inches of my cord, my Supplemax cord, just so I'm sure that I have plenty. I am still going to be using an 8mm size focal bead. These are navy blue, very nice glass pearls. And then I'm going to be using the clear 6mm Czech glass beads. And then I'm going to be using, again, these little tiny 4mm glass white pearls. As far as the amount of these things that you need, it just totally depends on your pattern, and I just would not advise to use any bead that's larger than this 8mm, because if you want something that's really chunky, it's not going to lend itself as nicely on this illusion type of necklace, especially a multi-strand. This is not quite petite, but it's still a nice small enough size to be comfortable without being really heavy. You're going to need some Clamshell Covers, which mine is the double tip. It has 2 little tips here on the end, which you're going to be closing up over a crimp bead or crimp tube, depending on what you want to use. And then that is going to be grabbing hold of the jump ring that you choose onto the chain. Those I had to order online. I know that you can find them in the craft stores. You have to look thoroughly for them because they do have the 1 hook clamshell. They don't have the 2 loop, and I like the 2 loop because there's no way that this is going to come off of my jump ring, because it's a solid circle here on my loops on both sides, and it's not going to come off of whatever I put it on. Whereas the one that's got the hook that just kind of goes like this, and then you have to push it down with your plier, that could still potentially come off of whatever bead stringing wire or jump ring that you're going to put it on, and you'll need 2 of those. Then I'm going to be using the size 1 crimp beads, and these are not crimp tubes. Crimp tubes are longer in size, and if you can see, this is an example of a crimp tube. It's like a cylinder, whereas the crimp beads literally look like little tiny silver beads, and this is the size 1. They do have a size 2 crimp bead, but I'm not going to use that because I'm working with the monofilament line, and it's not as thick as bead stringing wire, so I can get by with the size 1. And you can see the difference in size. This is a size 1 crimp bead, and this is a size 2 crimp bead. Just so long as whatever cord that you're using, such as this 0.10 inches of Supplemax, as long as all of the strands that you're going to be using will fit nicely into your crimp bead, then you shouldn't have to go up in size. If you're using bead stringing wire though to do this type of project, you're going to need to go up to the size 2. I also have some little 4mm jump rings, which I'm going to use to attach onto my chain. This is actually a little bit larger jump ring on this example here. I think this is a 6mm, but you can go as small as the 4mm, that way it's not as obvious. And you'll want to either use some leftover chain, kind of a petite chain is what I would suggest, or you can take a chain apart. So this is an example of this is a complete chain. That's an 18-inch chain here. I'm just going to be taking this one apart because I like the small links on this. It already came with a clasp, lobster clasp, so I can also utilize this as well, just taking off a few inches here depending on the length that I need overall, which today I'm going to need 16 inches overall in my necklace, but I might only need 1 to 2 inches of chain with the clasp. tool wise, again, this is totally up to you how you want to crimp everything, but if you want to do a traditional crimp, you're going to need some crimping pliers. I am not very concerned about that in this particular project. As a matter of fact, I did flat crimps on this design here, and to do a flat crimp, all you really need is the flat nose pliers or even your chain nose pliers. This is the flat nose plier. You can see it's a lot wider. I don't even have my chain nose pliers here. That flat crimp then is hidden into the clamshell. The next thing you might want is your flush cutters to cut your cord, your string that you're using. This is really meant for bead stringing wire, but I just grabbed it so I can cut mine. You can also just use scissors if you're going to be working with monofilament line or the fishing line. And then something else I use a lot when I open and close things like my jump rings and such are the bent nose pliers. And this is different, even though it's clear, this is different from stretchy cord, so don't get that confused. The stretch cord literally stretches. It's elastic. This is monofilament. It does not have any kind of stretch to it, just like fishing line, and you can, if you're ultra rough with it, can get like little cuts on your fingers like you would on fishing line if you're pulling this cord really fast and taut. So just be careful on that. Okay, I went ahead and cut 3 strands, and I did 21 inches just to be on the safe side because I figured about 14 inches is going to be taken off based on my other necklace here. So I wanted to give you an extra tip. I went ahead and changed my ruler. I got just a standard ruler here. This is actually 15 inches long. But it was just easier for me to put the cord up against this straight ruler instead of working with that flimsy measuring tape that I had. And then once you've cut at least one of your strands here, then just use that strand against the spool to cut the other 2 or 4 or 6, however many of these strands that you're going to be cutting. So I got 3 at the 21 inches here, and I'm going to line them all up on one of the ends to where all of their tips are right here together. Now you're going to be trimming off the extras, so if this isn't exact, you don't have to be militant about it, especially if you're giving yourself just a little bit of extra wiggle room, but try to get as close as you can. Again, on my particular design, I'm going to use the size 1 crimp bead, which is the tiny one. All 3 pieces of my cord are through that crimp bead, and now I'm going to take my flat pliers and just come over the top and push down to where I've got a flat crimp. And you might want to lightly pull it just with your fingers to be sure that that's not going anywhere. So I'm going to put the other cords on the other side here all together as much as possible because I just need to feed it through the hole. And I'm going to be going down through the hole on this center clamshell because I want my crimp to be right here in that little cup area so that I can close it over. So be sure you've got all 3 strands, which I do. And then pull it through that hole there until you get all the way down to the crimp. Now I'm pulling that right down in there. And because we use that size 1 crimp for this particular size, which is just a standard double looped clamshell, my size 1 crimp fits in there very nicely. So now I'm just going to close this up with my fingers with that crimp being in the center. And if you have an issue with closing this up, you can use your flathead pliers or flat nose pliers to go ahead and push to get a little bit closer together. It's not going to have to be sealed or anything because we're going to use one of our jump rings to grab a hold of this on the loop. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And I just go ahead and do that. That way I don't have to worry about this crazy thing coming apart as I'm knotting all of my pearls. This is again a 4mm size, so it's a small jump ring. I've got my bent nose pliers on the right hand side. It looks like a crooked finger. I have my flat nose on the left, and the left hand side is just going to be holding it steady, and I'm going to do the movement with my right hand. So either push it away from yourself or pull it towards yourself like you're opening or closing a door. So I'm going to push away from myself on the right hand side to where I've opened that up. Grab a hold of the double loop clamshell, and now you can close this up. So since I pushed it away from myself, I'm going to pull it towards myself this time, and it's good and closed, but I'm going to go ahead and still give it just a little squeeze right there with my flat nose pliers. That way I know for sure that it's lined up and nothing's going to come out of there. So now I've got one end of this finished, and I can go ahead and start feeding on my beads and tying my knots and not have to worry about anything coming apart. So when I start feeding on, I'm talking about I've got to do each strand individually in order to get this kind of look here, because they're individual strands. As you put on your beads, you might even want to use maybe a clipboard to grab hold of this jump ring, so that it's sort of like if you were braiding cord, it just kind of stabilizes your work here as you're tying. I didn't really feel the need to do that for myself, but if you feel like there's just too much movement and you don't enjoy that, go ahead and clip onto a clipboard or use a piece of tape onto your surface that you're working on, and then go to town making your little knots. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to pick one of my strands, and I'm going to look for hopefully the outside strand. So for me, it's this one right here. I get the other two strands out of my way, and then I'm just going to pick whatever beads I want to start in my pattern. Now each strand is going to be different. I go on to the next strand is I'll lay this first strand out and then alternate how I started each strand. That way I kind of stagger my pattern out a little bit, which is what I did here. I've got a crystal that started on one, and then I've got two of the glass pearls on the other, but then when I went to the third strand, I'm back to the crystal. So you just kind of do however you like the look of your pattern and stagger it out. If you don't want to stagger it out, no problem there. It's whatever appeals to you. I think I'm going to start with two of my glass pearls, put the cord through, and then I'm not going to pull it all the way up to my clamshell. I'm going to give it just a little bit of breathing room. So that looks like maybe a ½ an inch of space. And what I need to do at this point is take the end of my cord that I started out with and feed it through these two little glass pearls. Once I get it back through there, through both of them, and you might have to do one at a time if it's going to be kind of slippy here at first. Okay, so I got lucky there. Now the beauty of this too is it's going to move around a little bit on you, and you can push it back where you need to before you finalize the knot. So I'm just pulling this string. Now because it moved on me, I need to kind of slide those two beads back down where I wanted them. Then pull the tension out. See how now I'm kind of balanced on my finger right here, because I wanted it about a ½ an inch down from my clamshell. So now I can finish tying my knot. Now it's not set in stone. I can still maneuver these if I wish, which is another beauty of this design, but it does hold itself in place fairly nicely. So now I'm just going to alternate my beads. Like for right now, I think I'm going to put my first blue, navy blue 8mm large pearl, and I'm going to continue making a pattern here and spacing it out. I kind of like to give myself about a ½ an inch between each bead group or specific bead that I'm working with. You can do whatever spacing is appealing to you, but you just put it through the hole, and then make sure that you position this where you want before you tie the knot. And it's going to kind of be tricky when you're first getting started. See how these two cords got into my knot area there? Don't want that. So pull that out before you tie your knot. So here I am about where I want to be, and I'm going to make another knot. This one just around my pearl. So next thing I'm going to do on this particular strand is put a crystal, which for me is actually not a crystal. It's a clear Aurora Borealis Czech glass bead, and I'm only going to use one of these, about a ½ an inch down from my glass pearl. Feed my cord through the opposite side so that I can make my knot, making sure that I don't have my other two strands in my way. Did I stay in the same spot that I wanted to be in? Kind of nudge myself down a little bit more, and then tie my knot. I'm going to continue that process for the rest of my strand here until I get towards the end to where I have about a ½ an inch that I know I'm going to be using to do the other clamshell. And you'll actually stagger your patterns on the other 2 strands. Okay, so right here, I just want to test this out and see how many inches I might have already. So overall, I need to have a 16-inch necklace, which will be right here. I'm going to go ahead and put my clasp so that I know that that is my chain portion. I'm going to put 2 clasps on my 8 just to be a placeholder for my eyes. As far as chain wise, I'm only going to need about 3 inches of chain on either side. So I'm at the 0 point here in the center. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 inches of beadwork. 1, 2, 3, 4 inches of beadwork at this point. I still have quite a bit of my cord left over. I'm going to go ahead and make that stop. Now to get the slack out, just go ahead and pull tight. So I started on the pearl, I'm ending on the glass. Whatever I stop in beads here, the rest of it's going to be in chain to get up to the 16 inches that I need total. So now I'm going to stop here on strand number 1, and then I'm going to start on strand number 2. And since I'm down here at this finished end with my little clamshell doing the glass pearl, I'm going to start on this side now on the middle strand with a glass bead. So here's my second strand, and now I've got that laid onto my board, and I want to start on this side with a blue pearl up towards the top so that I'm continuing to do the stagger. This will be my final strand for this, and then I'll be attaching. Looks like I'm going to only need about 3 inches of chain. For a shorter necklace like this 16-inch that I'm making for someone, the small length of chain is not going to really be something that they're looking at, but it lends itself to how it hangs around the neck so that you're really looking at the focal point, which is the beaded section. So for instance here, I've got a little bit longer since this is a 27-inch necklace, but the focal part is the beaded section here, and then this section here goes around the back of your neck, so it's really up the side and around the back. This is really what you're going to see laying on the chest area. Okay, so I've got a chain that's already put together. So what I'm going to do is make sure my clasp works, and this does. It already has a little 4mm jump ring on there plus the links of the chain. So what I want to do is take this and lay it on the 8, bring it down here to the end to where it's going to meet the jump ring that I have on my beadwork. I'm going to be careful, grab hold of that section with my bent nose pliers so I'm sure I've got the same link. Look for which way it opens, which I think it's opening down this way, so I just turned mine upside down. Yours may be a lot easier to see. Open it like you would a jump ring. I'm going to attach that onto the split ring I already had, or not split ring, but the jump ring that I already had on there. And then I'm just going to close my link back. Make sure that your link is closed nicely. Give it a squeeze if you have any doubt, because I need the other side of the necklace, which this one already has a small jump ring on it, but I'm going to actually put a larger jump ring on it to finish so it's easier to grab hold of, which will be a 6mm size here. Now there's 2 options that I've got with trying to get the exact amount of chain. Even if I were to lay this chain like I did the first time, you know, moving that out of the way and coming down here, putting that exactly on it to capture my jump ring area, that could work, but I want to be exact. So I'm going to come over here to this piece that I've already got, and either you can count the links or you can put a head pin or some sort of something through the hole, like a piece of cord or string or whatever, and let it dangle so that you know how many links that you have by the dangle effect. I'm going to go ahead and just count links, and then that way I'm sure I've got how many I want. Now currently it just has the small little jump ring on it, I'm going to change that out for a large jump ring. Open that up. You can also put split rings on to end it, which looks like a small version of a keychain. We're coming up to the 8, just a little bit over the 8 on both sides, and also depending on how this rests on their neck, then this is a 16-inch necklace here. I wanted to show you the difference in the styles that I had. This is the original design with the teal beads. This is a 27-inch necklace here, and it has the chain as well as the illusion portion, the beaded portion. And the order that I had today for the navy blue, she wanted the mixed design. I do have the 16-inch version of that here, and then I added a 2-inch extender on that. However, I wanted to make this same necklace without the extender and without the chain portion so that you could see the difference. So this is really cute. This is a 16-inch, but it just doesn't have a chain or an extender on it. You can really make these as many strands as you like, just provided that you can fit all the strands through your crimp bead. Now, if you are not going to use this monofilament and you want to do the alternate versions of the illusion necklaces where you're using the bead stringing wire, you definitely will need to use the size 2, but I would suggest instead of crimp beads that you use the crimp tubes as far as ending your design. As far as separating the beads using bead stringing wire, you can do those flat crimps with a size 1 crimp bead on either side of the bead as the stopping part. Okay, so just to see who's helping me today, we got String Bean over there in the forest, and we got Blinky. Hello, Blinky. Blink, 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 blink. He's ignoring me right now. But that's Mr. Blinky. So say bye. Have a sparkle-rific day, y'all. Bye.